the labyrinth of fear. The forest loomed ahead, thick and foreboding. As the group pressed forward toward the location, marked as the labyrinth of fear on their ancient map, the sun was sinking lower in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the path, and a sense of unease began to creep over them. Each step seemed heavier than the last, the weight of their journey and the knowledge they had uncovered bearing down on them. Zephyr led the way, his hand tightly gripping the heart of the forest, now pulsing with a rhythmic glow that seemed to resonate with the magic around them. The atmosphere grew tense as they neared the entrance to the labyrinth, a massive, ancient stone archway covered in twisting vines and cryptic symbols. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, and a chill crept into the air, making the group shiver. "This must be it," Zephyr said, his voice low as he studied the archway. "The labyrinth of fear. It's said to be filled with traps and illusions, designed to test our resolve and expose our deepest fears." Collie, ever the optimist, forced a grin despite the tension. "Well, nothing like facing your worst nightmares to spice up an adventure, right?" Orion, more serious, examined the symbols on the archway, tracing them with his fingers. "These symbols are similar to the ones we've seen before, but they're more complex. They're meant to disorient and confuse anyone who enters. We'll need to stay focused and work together to make it through." Syrah stepped closer to Thad, their earlier bond now a source of comfort and strength. "Whatever we face in there, we can handle it. We've already come so far." Thad squeezed her hand, his expression resolute. "We're stronger together. We won't let this labyrinth break us." Isolde, who had been unusually quiet, studied the archway with narrowed eyes. Her thoughts remained hidden, but there was a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze and emotion that Zephyr caught as he glanced back at her. However, he said nothing, focusing instead on the task ahead. With a deep breath, Zephyr stepped through the archway, the others following closely behind. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the world seemed to shift around them. The air grew colder, and the forest vanished, replaced by towering walls of stone that twisted and turned, creating an endless maze. "Stay close," Zephyr instructed, his voice echoing in the narrow passageway. "We don't want to get separated." They moved cautiously through the labyrinth, each turn revealing new obstacles. The walls were lined with ancient carvings that seemed to shift and change, distorting into grotesque faces that leered at them. The ground beneath their feet felt unstable, as if it might give way at any moment, and the air was thick with an oppressive sense of dread. As they ventured deeper, the labyrinth began to play tricks on their minds. The path they were certain they had taken only moments ago suddenly led them in a different direction, and the walls seemed to close in on them, narrowing the passages until they could barely squeeze through. "This place is designed to mess with our heads," Collie muttered, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's like it's alive, feeding on our fears." Orion, struggling to maintain his composure, nodded. "It's trying to disorient us, make us doubt ourselves. We need to remember that these are illusions. We have to trust each other and keep moving forward." But the labyrinth wasn't just toying with their senses. It was delving into their deepest fears, bringing them to the surface in terrifying ways. As they turned a corner, Syrah suddenly stopped, her eyes wide with fear. Before her stood a twisted version of her childhood home, engulfed in flames. The cries of her family echoed through the air, and she was frozen in place, unable to move. "Syrah," Thad called out, rushing to her side. He grabbed her shoulders, trying to snap her out of the illusion. "It's not real. None of this is real." But Syrah could only see the burning house, hear the screams. Tears welled in her eyes as she relived the trauma of that night, the night she lost everything. I can't do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. Thad pulled her close, his voice firm yet gentle. "Yes, you can. You're stronger than this. We'll get through it together, just like we've faced everything else. Don't let the labyrinth win." With Thad's words grounding her, Syrah took a deep breath and forced herself to look away from the illusion. The flames flickered and faded, the screams silencing until the vision dissolved, leaving only the cold stone walls of the labyrinth. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Thad nodded, giving her a reassuring smile before they continued. The labyrinth continued to challenge them, each passageway revealing new horrors. Zephyr found himself facing a shadowy figure, a twisted version of himself that taunted him with his deepest insecurities, the fear of failing those he cared about, of not being strong enough to protect them. "You'll never be enough," the figure sneered, its voice cold and mocking. "You'll lead them all to their doom." Zephyr clenched his fists, his heart pounding as the words cut deep, but he knew better than to give in. "I'm not perfect, but I won't let fear control me. I'll do whatever it takes to keep my friends safe." The shadowy figure dissolved into mist, and Zephyr pressed on, more determined than ever. Collie's trial was different, a mirror that reflected her greatest fear, being alone. The reflection showed her standing alone in the labyrinth, the others gone, leaving her behind. Panic welled up inside her as the reflection seemed to mock her, left to face the world on her own. But Collie wasn't one to back down. "I'm not alone," she told herself, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "I have my friends, and they have me. We're in this together." The mirror shattered, the shards falling to the ground and disappearing as Collie rejoined the others. Orion's trial was perhaps the most insidious, a room filled with endless puzzles, each more complex than the last. The pressure to solve them, to prove his worth, weighed heavily on him. The fear of failure loomed over him, whispering that he wasn't smart enough, that he would never measure up. But Orion had learned over the course of their journey that his value wasn't just in his intellect. It was in his loyalty, his courage, and his heart. "I'm more than just my mind," he said quietly, pushing through the fear. "I'm part of this team, and that's what makes me strong." The puzzles vanished, leaving Orion standing tall, his resolve unshaken. As they neared the heart of the labyrinth, Isolde's behavior became increasingly erratic. She seemed distracted, her eyes darting around as if she was searching for something or someone. Zephyr kept a close eye on her, the suspicions he'd harbored since the beginning of their journey now coming to the forefront. Finally, they reached the center of the labyrinth, a vast, circular chamber with a high ceiling and walls covered in ancient runes. In the center stood a large, ornate door, its surface covered in symbols similar to those on the heart of the forest. "This must be the final trial," Orion said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "The door is sealed with magic. We need to figure out how to open it." As they approached the door, Isolde suddenly stepped forward, her face pale and tense. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling. "There's something I need to do." Before anyone could react, she raised her hands, and the heart of the forest pulsed violently, emitting a blinding light that filled the chamber. The others shielded their eyes, but Zephyr quickly realized what was happening. "Isolde, stop!" he shouted, but it was too late. The light from the heart intensified, and the door began to crack open. But instead of revealing a path forward, it unleashed a dark, swirling vortex that filled the chamber with a chilling wind. The labyrinth's illusions shattered, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. Isolde turned to face the group, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't have a choice." The vortex grew stronger, pulling at the group with a force that threatened to drag them into its depths. Zephyr grabbed Isolde's arm, his eyes blazing with anger and betrayal. "What have you done?" he demanded, struggling to keep his footing. Isolde's eyes filled with tears. "I was trying to help, but I've made a terrible mistake. We have to stop it, or the entire forest will be consumed." The group fought against the pull of the vortex, their combined strength just barely keeping them from being sucked in. Zephyr held onto the heart of the forest, trying to use its power to close the vortex. But the darkness was too strong. "We can't let it end like this," Syrah shouted over the roaring wind. "There has to be a way to stop it." Orion's mind raced, trying to think of a solution. "The ritual," he exclaimed. "We need to perform the ritual now, before it's too late. Working together, the group quickly prepared to enact the ritual they had learned from the tome. The steps were intricate and required precise coordination. The labyrinth seemed to sense their desperation, its walls pulsing with dark energy as they hurried to complete the ritual. The swirling vortex loomed ominously, growing stronger with every passing second, threatening to consume them all. Zephyr took charge, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Orion, you handle the symbols. Syrah, Thad, and Kali focus on the incantations. Isolde, stay close and help me keep the heart of the forest steady. Orion's hands moved swiftly as he traced the symbols on the ground, each stroke glowing faintly in the dim light. His mind was a whirlwind of calculations, but he forced himself to stay calm, knowing that a single mistake could doom them all. Syrah and Thad began chanting the incantations they had memorized from the tome, their voices blending together in a harmonious but eerie melody. Kali added her voice, though it was slightly shaky from the tension, her usual humor absent in the face of such dire circumstances. Isolde hovered close to Zephyr, her expression a mix of fear and regret. The heart of the forest in Zephyr's hands pulsed with an erratic rhythm, its glow flickering as if struggling to contain the dark forces unleashed by the vortex. Zephyr could feel the weight of its power and the responsibility that came with it. Zephyr, Isolde whispered, her voice breaking slightly. I never wanted it to come to this. I thought I could control it, but I was wrong. Zephyr didn't respond immediately, focusing instead on channeling his energy into the heart, trying to synchronize its power with the ritual. The vortex roared louder, its pull intensifying. Just help me fix this, Zephyr finally said, his tone more forgiving than accusatory. We can sort out everything else later. Isolde nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. She placed her hands over Zephyr's and together, they focused on stabilizing the heart of the forest. The ancient artifact responded, its glow becoming steadier, stronger. Orion finished drawing the symbols and stepped back, nodding to Zephyr. It's ready. Now, Zephyr, you need to release the heart's energy at the exact moment we finish the final incantation. It should seal the vortex and restore balance. Syrah, Thad, and Kali intensified their chanting, the air around them humming with magical energy. The vortex responded, its chaotic spinning slowing slightly, but its malevolent presence still palpable. As the final words of the incantation filled the chamber, Zephyr felt a surge of power from the heart. He and Isolde exchanged a quick glance, and with a deep breath, Zephyr released the artifact's energy into the symbols on the ground. The chamber erupted in a brilliant flash of light, the symbols glowing with an intensity that outshone the vortex. The energy from the heart of the forest surged through the labyrinth, filling every corner with its ancient magic. For a moment, it seemed like time itself stood still. The vortex stopped spinning, hovering in the air as if caught in a suspended state. Then, with a deafening roar, it began to collapse in on itself, shrinking smaller and smaller until it finally vanished with a sharp crack, leaving behind only the faintest trace of darkness. The labyrinth shuddered, the walls trembling as if in the aftermath of a great storm. Slowly, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift, the dark energy that had pervaded the labyrinth dissipating. The walls no longer seemed to twist and change, and the unsettling faces in the stone melted away, leaving behind only the cold, solid stone. The group stood in stunned silence, catching their breath as they processed what had just happened. The chamber was now eerily quiet, the only sound the faint echo of their breathing. We did it, Syrah whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief and relief. We actually did it. Thad pulled Syrah into a hug, his relief palpable. I knew we would. We've come too far to fail now. Kali let out a shaky laugh, her usual bravado slowly returning. That was way too close for comfort. But yeah, we pulled it off. Go team us. Orion, ever the pragmatist, approached the now sealed door. The energy from the heart has closed the vortex, but I don't think we're done yet. This door is still here for a reason. There's something behind it that we need to find. Zephyr, still holding the heart of the forest, nodded. Whatever it is, it's the key to breaking the curse. Let's see what's on the other side. Isolde, who had been quiet, stepped forward. Before we go any further, I need to explain. I've been keeping things from you all, and it's time I told you the truth. The group turned to face her, their expressions a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and concern. Isolde took a deep breath. I came here because I'm connected to this forest in ways you can't imagine. The curse that plagues it is tied to my family. The spirits that haunt these woods were once my ancestors, trapped here by a terrible mistake made long ago. I thought I could control the power of the heart and use it to free them, but I underestimated the darkness that's taken root here. Zephyr's expression softened as he listened. Why didn't you tell us earlier? I was afraid, Isolde admitted. Afraid that you'd see me as the enemy, that you wouldn't trust me. But now I see that I need to trust you too. We're all in this together, and we can only break the curse if we work as one. There was a brief silence as the group absorbed Isolde's revelation. Finally, Orion spoke up. We've all made mistakes, and we've all got things we're not proud of, but we're here now, and we're not giving up. Syrah nodded in agreement. We'll help you, Isolde. Whatever it takes, we'll find a way to break this curse and free your family. Thad gave a small smile. Let's just make sure we don't unleash any more dark forces while we're at it. Okay? Isolde's eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you. I won't let you down. Zephyr approached the door, the heart of the forest still glowing faintly in his hands. All right, let's see what lies beyond this door. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. With a sense of renewed determination, Zephyr placed the heart against the door. The symbols on the door responded, glowing brightly as the ancient magic within the artifact resonated with the door's enchantment. Slowly, the door began to open, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond. The air was thick with the scent of old magic, and the walls were lined with shelves filled with ancient scrolls and artifacts. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, upon which rested a large, ornate tome bound in dark leather. The Book of Shadows, Orion breathed, recognizing the tome from the descriptions in the tome they had found earlier. It's said to contain the knowledge of the curse and how to break it. Zephyr carefully approached the pedestal, feeling the weight of the moment. This is it, the final piece of the puzzle. With this book, we can finally end the curse and free the spirits trapped in this forest. Isolde stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the book. But the knowledge in that book is dangerous. We have to be careful. The magic that created the curse was born of desperation and fear. If we're not careful, we could end up repeating the same mistakes. We won't, Zephyr said firmly. We've come too far, and we've learned too much. We'll use this knowledge to set things right, not to create more suffering. The group gathered around the pedestal, their faces lit by the soft glow of the heart of the forest. Together, they opened the Book of Shadows, the pages crackling with ancient energy as they began to read. As they delved into the book's secrets, they knew that the final battle was yet to come. The curse of the Blackwood Forest was not going to be broken easily, but they were ready. They had faced their fears, overcome their doubts, and forged an unbreakable bond in the process. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with the strength of their friendship and the power of the heart of the forest guiding them. The labyrinth had tested them in ways they never imagined, but in the end, it had only made them stronger. And now, armed with the knowledge they had gained, they were ready to confront the darkness that had plagued the forest for centuries and finally bring an end to the curse that had claimed so many lives. As they turned the final page of the Book of Shadows, they knew one thing for certain: their journey was far from over, but the end was in sight.